What's up everybody, it's Priyan Joni. I'm excited to show you the brand new battle mixer from Pioneer DJ, the DJM-S7. It's the little brother to the recently released DJM-S11 mixer, and it shares a lot of the same features. And just like on the S11, it improves upon the design legacy that started with the DJM-S9. Now, you might think that the S7 is an S11 without the touch display at first glance. While it does share a lot of the same feature upgrades, there are features on the S7 that are exclusive to the S7 and are being introduced for the first time on a battle mixer. At $13.99, this is the most affordable Serato mixer that allows you to use two laptops at the time of its launch. And just like on the DJM-S11, this mixer is plug and play with both Serato DJ Pro and Rekordbox. That means you don't need a license or a subscription to use this with both software. So we're gonna take a close look at this mixer, but first a word from our sponsor, Direct Music Service. DMS is an online database for working DJs and mix artists. It's the one-stop shop where you can get your music from for your gigs. It's a searchable, organized database with thousands of edits, remixes, and different versions of your favorite tracks from many different genres. You can now save some money and get a discount using one of these two coupon codes. Use the code PJMonthly and get 30% off your first month off any monthly subscription. Use the coupon code PJYearly and get 10% off your entire first year of any yearly subscription. Go to directmusicservice.com today to sign up. So the overall dimensions is basically identical to the DJM-S9. So if you have a case or a coffin, you can totally drop this wherever you used to have an S9. But aside from an identical footprint, the S7 departs from the S9 design. And we're gonna talk about that. I'm gonna start with the front controls, and then I'm gonna work my way from bottom up over the top, and then we'll talk about the rear. So what you'll notice in the front is there is no mic echo knob. So there's no echo like on the S11 and the S9. And instead of a two-band EQ, there's just one single tone control for the microphone. Now below the mic level, there is a level knob for Bluetooth. That's right, this mixer has Bluetooth capability. You can pair it with any mobile device that has Bluetooth. So a lot of times, a lot of scratch DJs like to plug their phone using an auxiliary cable to the headphone output and play beats from their phone as they do their scratch practice. Unfortunately, if you don't have an old phone like mine, an iPhone 6S, a lot of new smartphones no longer have the headphone output. So if you want to hook up your phone to your mixer, you either have to have a dongle that plugs directly and then your phone's gonna run out of battery because you're using the data line, or you're gonna have to use a special dongle so that you can charge your phone at the same time. And we all know how easy dongles are to lose. Now with Bluetooth capability, you're able to pair your phone directly wirelessly and you can keep your phone charging. So let me pair my phone now. I'm gonna click the Bluetooth button once to the S7 and it's now connected. That was pretty quick. And I'm gonna play a beat from the Table Beats application. So with this beat on, I'm connected, and I'm gonna do a little scratch practice. So yeah, I can connect my iPad, my smartphone via Bluetooth, and it's easy to do practice. And it's not just for practicing your scratches, it's also a way where you can connect in case you have an emergency if your computer crashes and play music from Spotify or any other music application. And for you mobile guys, if you dare, this is a way for the bride and groom to play their request directly from their phone onto your mixer. Now everything else is familiar and the same controls that you found on the S9 and on the S7. You got your crossfader curve adjust, you got your channel fader curve adjust, and you have the reverse switch on all of them. And of course your tension control knob, which is called the feeling adjust for your crossfader. Now let's talk about the crossfader. This crossfader is an improved version from the one compared to the S9. It's the same one that you find on the S11. It is 30% more rigid so that there's no flex to keep it more stable and also last longer, so you don't have to worry about this thing twisting off or breaking off. Now, the performance pad sections are identical to the ones you find on the DJM-S7. It has everything from independent pad control, so you can independently select different pad modes for each deck. And it also has the combo pad mode, where you can take two primary pad modes and select two of them at a time for each side. Let's see, I can go reverse. So basically I have my hot cues on the top, sampler down here, and I have my samplers on the top with hot cues here. They're clear because I don't have a song loaded. And just like on the S11, there are 4 pad modes per button. There's your primary, which is your hotkey roll, save loop, sampler. There are your secondary. When you hold shift, you got pitch, play, slicer, save loop, and the favorite scratch bank. You have your third functions when you double click, like gate cue. And of course your user functions that are yellow, which are user assignable. Now, I don't remember these by memory, but I did do a video for the S11 charting out all the different pad modes. So if you want to check that out, I'll leave a link right here. And I don't want to spend too much time on the different pad modes because a lot of these are covered from the S11, but just to show you a few of them. Gate cue allows you with DVS to be able to do momentary triggering of hotkey points. And with gate cue, I can do my gate cue scratching, which I'll leave a link above how to do that, but it's basically... This was a feature that wasn't really possible on DVS until gate cue was introduced. Also, not to mention, gate cue is also the way you can do a silent cue. So right now I have a song, it's muted, and if I want to do a hot cue from a silence, I just trigger any hot cue, hold it down, click the hotkey pad mode button, and we're back to normal, and I can let it go and it plays from a silent cue. If you have it muted from a gate cue, you can, right now it's muted, you can totally load a new track and it's muted until you trigger a hot cue, and then hit the hotkey pad mode button, and now it plays. Now, as I mentioned, we also have the transport controls. So if you need internal mixing, say your needle broke or your phase isn't reading, you can completely mix with full transport control right on the pad. So cue button, play button, you have your key lock, you have your sync button here, and you also have your tempo bending as well as your full tempo control on the upper pads. And of course, Scratch Bank lets you load up to 8 tracks onto the Scratch Bank, and you can pull them out instantaneously at the moment of a hot cue, and you can set a hot cue point for every Scratch Bank. So basically, I put the same scratch track on each Scratch Bank, but I made them so that they trigger at different hot cues. This isn't just for scratch samples, it's also for loading songs, and since you have up to 4 different banks of 8, you can have 32 songs that are triggered for every pad on the pad mode, and you can switch banks to each one. This allows you to actually store a quick mix routine onto your Scratch Bank if you want to pull out songs really fast. So the effects section looks a little different from the S9 and the S11. There's actually just 6 total effects select buttons, but they function a little differently because they have a few new features on them. The thing to note is, even though there are only 6 effects select buttons, you can actually access the same number of effects as the DJM-S9, but there's a total of 22 effects, so there's more effects than on the S9. Plus, you have this new feature called Loop MIDI, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. So when you hold shift down, what you'll notice is you're usually used to the blue buttons. You hold it down, there's a different color for each. The blue button, the echo button, is actually the beat effects, so you're in beat effects mode. The teal button is Serato effects, they all turn teal, and now you can select different effects internally. Now there's Loop MIDI 1, which is all green, and I'll show you how that works in a little bit. Loop MIDI 2, which is all yellow, and then for the vinyl and the phaser button, which is the red and pink purple button, magenta, you can select bank A and bank B. You can store all this and do custom effects in the settings utility. And you have two banks where you can do a custom array of effects. So let's go back to beat effects. So to change an effect, you got your default of echo, backspin, flanger, reverb, vinyl break, and phaser. If you want to change the effects, like I said, there's 22. All you do is hold the effect select button and then you change the browse knob. And the little display here, you can see it's changing to different effects. So I'm going to switch that to ducking echo. Since there's no touchscreen, this is actually your indicator for changing the effects. So let's talk about loop MIDI. Let's go into the green one. So what loop MIDI is, it's an array of different modes where the mixer sends a repeating MIDI signal and it does it to the beat, to the tempo of the playing track. Loop MIDI 1 actually repeats the first 3 samples in your sampler bank or the first 3 hot cues that's set to a track that you have. So we're going to set this to a whole note and we're going to engage the loop MIDI. And as you can hear, I can basically play a kick drum there. And this is looping, as you see on the Serato screen, it's looping the kick that I have there. And I can switch it to the snare. And its beat duration is actually independent per button. And you can do some cool stuff with it, like you can create a beat. And that's what you can do with the sampler side, but on the hot cue side, you can even loop certain hot cues. Here's a cool thing you can do with the scratch sample on the hot cue. So say I have this looping. And it's not just made for beats. So you could do it with top effects like if you want to check out an entire routine where I'm using loop MIDI, check out this link above where I take the S7 out for a spin. Now let's go into loop MIDI 2. Loop MIDI 2 actually affects tracks that you're playing. So if I have it select for echo, it's gonna pitch it up. If I have it for backspin, it's gonna pitch it down. And then I believe flanger is a slip reverse. Now if I'm trying to reset whatever I was doing, all I have to do is hold shift and click the paddle. Then on the other side, this just re-triggers your hot cue. Vinyl break re-triggers a sampler. And phaser is just a mute, which you can use for scratching because it makes the paddle simulate having a switch. So you can do some transformer switch type of scratches using the paddle. Now, the DJM-S7 is the first battle mixer with paddle trigger effects, where the paddles are remappable for multiple functions in MIDI loop. So the mixer's upper section, since it's not a long mixer, it has the staggered EQ where the trim knob and the filter color effects are on the sides. It's just like the one on the S9, so it helps you navigate and know where you are positionally. The trim knobs are skinny and the color effects knobs are metal. And I call these color effects knobs because you can go into your settings utility and change these to other effects other than the filter. You still have your noise, pitch, dub echo, and wide filter. And just like on the DJM-S11, the load button is bigger than the back button, so it's easier to navigate when you're not looking at it or if you're in a dark club, so you don't mistake the two buttons from each other. And just like on the S11, the auto loop button is now by default Serato style. So that means whatever you set it at, wherever you leave it highlighted, by default will be your auto loop duration. Now, if you want it S9 style, where you can predetermine a fixed loop length, you can actually set that in your settings. So that way you can always keep it at 8 beats or 16 beats or 4 beats, whatever it is. So you do have loop options. The rear section is identical to the DJM-S11. As I mentioned earlier, the DJM-S7 is the most affordable 2-channel battle mixer with Serato that allows you to use 2 laptops. Just like the S11, it has the additional USB hub, so you can bring in accessories, you can plug in CDJs, you can plug in third-party media controllers. And what's cool is it'll actually switch to the other computer when you switch to the other computer on your selector. It provides 5 volts, so that means it will power your phase device. So you don't have to worry about your phase turning on and off intermittently because it's not providing enough power. This is great for CDJs in HID mode. If you have a DDJ XP2 subcontroller, you can use it and plug it into there. Now, just like on the S9 and S11, there is an RCA auxiliary input, but unlike the S9, but more like the S11, you can actually boost it to 12 decibels if you go into the panel utility. This is great if you're plugging anything in there that has a weak signal. For example, if you're doing a back-to-back set with somebody with an entry-level controller, usually entry-level controllers don't have a hot signal. You can boost it right on the mixer. For me, when I play with musical instruments, sometimes my guitar can be quiet compared to the music that I'm playing. That 12 dB boost comes really useful. Now, aside from the touchscreen, what's the difference with the S11? Well, number one, it doesn't have the smooth echo. It doesn't have the echo on the mic, and it doesn't have all the touchscreen features like touch effects or touch MIDI. And the S7 is strictly a 2-channel mixer. That means it can only access and control only the first 2 channels in your DJ software. I know on the S9, you can actually access deck 3 and 4, but you can only access them independently. Like on one channel, you can only access deck 2 or deck 4, not both. And same goes for the other side. You can either access 1 or 3, but not both. On the S11, you can actually access all 4 decks simultaneously, and you have those mashup mode features where you can do deck move and dual deck to lock the 2 adjacent decks together. The S7 is strictly a 2-deck, 2-channel battle mixer. The sound quality is definitely a huge improvement from the DJM-S9. And a lot of times when people are comparing mixers, they say that the Pioneer mixers might be a little quiet, but that's because there's an onboard compressor and limiter, which you can actually turn off so that you can maximize the amount of output. But it's recommended that you keep it on so that way you don't clip or distort your signal. So if you're looking for a great battle mixer that you can use as an at-home practice piece, but you can also take to your gigs without breaking the bank, the DJM-S7 packs the punch with all the modern needed features with a couple of unique features of its own. And it does it at $13.99. Be sure to check out my performance video if you want to see the S7 live in action. And if you have any questions, comments, or anything to add about the DJM-S7, please leave them in the comments section below. Would love to hear your thoughts, answer any questions, or learn anything new that I didn't cover in this video. And as always, I'm going to leave product links to the S7 and the PLX 1000s down below in the pinned comment if you are looking to get one today. The links are going to be from Zounds because they have one of the best payment plan programs that you can find online. It's one of the easiest to qualify for, so click the link to Zounds. If you like this video, please smash that like button, and if it's your first time here and you found this video useful, please click that subscribe button, and don't forget to click that little bell icon so you get a notification the next time I upload a video. Don't forget to add me on Twitch, where I do my live streams and where I take the gear out for a spin. I like to switch around all the gear that I play on so that way you can see it for yourself when it's being used in a live setting. All right, really appreciate you for watching. Thanks, take care, and stay healthy.